And we should be live. Teddy's very cold. Well, nice you taking care of him. So let me know in the chat if you can all hear me properly. And Emma is here. Nice to see you, Emma. So we've got about 11 minutes before to start. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. And Tish is here. Welcome, Tish. So as you can probably tell, I've decided to start with a view. Perfect. Thank you, Tish. And Natalie is here, hand pink waving, hand pink waving. So we've got, let me check, 12 minutes exactly. Oh, what's that? Got an interesting notification, I don't know what it is. A little triangle. I hope it's not an attention careful sign. We'll see. And Suzanne is here. Welcome, Suzanne. Where are we? Tish is asking. We are on Primrose Hill. So we're just a few meters from where I usually start. But I decided to show you the view. Let me show you the view again. So we've got about 10 minutes. So if any of you are watching this on replay in the next few days or weeks, if you want to skip the hellos and go straight to the point, feel free to skip the next 10 minutes. And Katie is here. Nice to see you here, Katie. You were hoping that was the answer. Good. Yeah, Tish, with my former SIM card, the other one, I don't have such a great signal here, but then I realized I didn't try with this one, so it should be perfect here. Oh, Roberta, your husband is called Robert. That's a nice couple name. Good, nice to see he's watching us as well. Well, if any of you watched the new Amy Winehouse movie, there's actually a scene right here with a fake bench. I was watching the movie, I was like, there's no bench there. I swear there are no benches. There's a scene from right here where she's with her grandmother, Cynthia, and the grandmother is telling Amy she's got lung cancer. So that was filmed right here. Although I suppose they would have had to delete a few skyscrapers from the background because some of them are newer than 2011. Yeah, with my other SIM card I had a bad reception. I remember that. That's why I never took you here before. But I've been double checking as much as I can. It seems to be okay, so we should be good. Cheryl is asking, what are we doing up the hill? Not much. We're just waiting for everyone to connect and then we'll go down towards the canal. Laurie is asking which show. There's a new movie, a movie in the cinemas called Back to Black that just came out a week ago, maybe 10 days ago now. It's about Amy Winehouse, tragic life. So it just came out. Look at a little friend there. Oh, you've seen it? Oh, good. Yeah, there have been quite a few documentaries about her life lately, but that's a movie. It is a fiction, I suppose, but it's really based on real events. Yeah, it is a great film, Cheryl. Yeah, I think Amy is quite. She's fairly well portrayed, I would say. Not convinced about Blake. I think they've been a bit too nice with Blake, but I think it's a fair representation of Amy. Although it's never going to be Amy, of course, it is an actress. It's probably very difficult for an actress to take on that role because, of course, you're never going to be Amy, you know. I think she's done quite well. And welcome, Mitzi, hand pink waving. You haven't seen it, Emma? You should. You're not a fan of the director? Oh, interesting, Natalie. What else? What else have they done? I don't think I know them. Yeah, they made Blake look a bit not even good, because I think in a way he looks even worse, because he looks like his mental health is fine. So then he's just like a beep, when really I think Blake was really, really unwell in terms of mental health, and that's probably why he dragged Amy into all that. Who's playing Amy? Marissa something. She's very good. She's not massively known until now. Marissa, what? But yeah, she's done very well. She directs her husband in many things. Do you mean Amy or the director? Not yet, across the pond now. She's been in a few, I think, BBC series and stuff like that, but I don't think she's well known in Hollywood yet. Sam Taylor Johnson. I don't think I know any of her other stuff. Yeah, it's a beep. Well, you're not meant to, you're meant to watch your vocabulary on YouTube, of course. Hi, Natasha, welcome. Let me see. 5 minutes. No, 5. Welcome, namesake. Nice to see you here. Marissa Abela, that's the one. Thank you so much, Laurie. And Cheryl, synchronized. All right, let me show you the view again in out of my face. And the light is changing, actually. It's not the warmest day today. To be honest, for April, it's not warm at all. But at least it's not raining, so we're happy. Oh, she did 50 Shades of Grey. I have, you know what, I have seen it. Never read the book, but I've seen the movie. Yeah. And welcome, Tariq, by the way. I didn't even say hello. Nice to see you here. She married a teenager after she directed him in her film. Oh, how old was she? And Sarah is here. Welcome, Sarah. So we've got, let me check, 4 minutes to go. Nowhere. No, here, boy. I've never heard of it, Natasha. I should check that out. How young and how young was the teenage boy? Oh, okay. Well, that's a bit of a gap, but yeah, interesting gap, but. Who am I to judge? Unmarried, all right. Ooh, learn something new. I'm gonna have to look her up. Oh, okay. Woo, a lot of information here. I never realized she was like a Charlie Chaplin, but a modern one. Yes, it's a Natalie and Natasha feast today. Right, 2 minutes to go. Oh, it's about John Lennon. Okay, didn't even know the film existed. Interesting. Of the London foreshore, do you mean the Thames shore? That'll be a long tour, but we could do a tour along the river. Yeah, definitely. What did I miss? Welcome, Anna. Nice to see you here, and welcome everyone else that I might have missed. Michelle is here. Welcome, Michelle. So we've got about 1 minute to go. Who is that? And Martin is here. Welcome. Oh, she did a film of David Beckham sleeping. Okay, interesting. Have I had any blue skies today? You know what? Yes, this morning at the tower. I had 3 tours today. A long day. I think this morning by the tower I had a blue sky. Not so much in the afternoon though. And who was that? Welcome, honey. You'd marry him too. Good. Right, let me check the time. Yes, it is officially time to start. So welcome, guys. Welcome, everyone. We are live from Primrose Hill. So we're just outside of Camden. If anyone was completely new to me, you're very welcome. I'm Natalie, and let's flip this around. She's had cancer, so maybe she's trying, she might be trying to live as much as she could now, yes. So if anyone just joined and you have no idea who we're talking about the director of the new Amy Winehouse movie, Back to Black. It turns up I didn't know anything about her, and she's got a very interesting life. Anyway, let's get started. So we are now in one of the best viewpoints in London. We are at the top of Primrose Hill. So you might see quite a few London landmarks in the distance. The sharpie one there is the BT Tower. You could potentially spot a little bit of the London Eye next to it. See a bit of the London Eye there. The building that's a bit triangular, that's known as the Pregnant Building. The developers, they tried to call it the Boomerang, but that didn't really take off. The big sharpie one there is, of course, the Shard. You might see a little bit of St. Paul's Cathedral straight in the middle of your screens now. And, of course, the walkie-talkie. And this is all the city and its interesting skyscrapers. Right, let me zoom out and let's go down. So we are now, let me see if it's fully out. Yeah. So we are on Primrose Hill, which is, it's a lovely park. It's quite a fancy area. I actually had a little look into, poor St. Paul's. It's looking very small now. I did have a little look at property on the market just before to start the tour. I was wondering how much one of those flats would be, with a view on the park. Well, the view, it's not even there, but I found a lovely 5-bedroom flat for $21,000 a month. So if you want to move into Primrose Hill, make sure you save a bit of money first. Now it is a park. It's never been a graveyard or a plague pit or anything like that, for once. But we did have a bit of a graveyard plan here. That was a crazy, crazy plan that luckily never developed. But in the beginning of the 19th century, I'm sure most of you would know that already because we've mentioned it in a few of my tours. But at the beginning of the 19th century, of course, we started to have a few too many deads in London. Those little graveyards around the churches, they were completely saturated. We had a terrible smell coming from them. We had some grave diggers that were getting rid of bodies to make more space. Some of those graves being sold were literally scams because they would remove the body after a few months and put more bodies in there. And they had to start looking for solutions. So that was before the creation of the Magnificent Seven, those amazing garden cemeteries that we visited in some of my tours, actually. So they had to find a solution, and there were actually a few crazy plans. One of them was the Pyramid of Death. It was a plan that should have been right here. Ask for a rise. It went under the name of the Metropolitan Sepulchre. The gentleman that designed it was Thomas Wilson, and it was just madness. It was going to be 90 stories high, but basically just for burials. Well, with a viewing platform at the top. They were planning on being able to bury. Well, it's not very much burying because it would have been above ground, but they were trying to place 40,000 bodies a year in that massive Pyramid of Death. That would have been, incredibly expensive anyway. Luckily, that didn't develop. But let me show you an image of what it would have looked like. So the space would have been on the floor about the size of Regent Square, if you know London, and it would have been higher than that St. Paul's Cathedral. So crazy project with a little viewpoint at the top. So that probably meant that you would have seen the Pyramid of Death from everywhere in London. Luckily, they didn't actually go for it, and eventually we decided to go for those garden cemeteries. Oh, let me delete it. We decided to go for those garden cemeteries instead, but that would have been interesting. In total, they would have been able to bury millions, which is crazy to imagine today. But luckily it didn't happen, because otherwise we probably wouldn't have had the beautiful Highgate Cemetery or Kensal Green Cemetery or Tower Hamlet or West Norwood or Nunhead. So luckily that didn't happen, and we still have this lovely park today. Now it's a beautiful area, but we did have quite a few murders in around Camden as well. I probably shouldn't tell you about all of them now, because we could do a Camden murder tour one day. The most shocking one we had, it's actually on Parkway, so that's the street going from the station to the park. Regent's Park, that is. It's just behind the trees there, it's Regent's Park, so that's where you have the London Zoo and everything. But horrible case. In 1995, Christmas Eve, the victim was dropped by his friends back home, after all his Christmas dinner and everything. And he was a man in his 50s, I think 53 he was. He had he actually worked for the police. He worked as a mechanic in Kentish Town police station, fixing the police cars. And so one day he's being dropped at home. He lived alone. Alan, his name was. He lived alone in a building that was going to be knocked down, so the building doesn't exist anymore. And he got home, didn't turn up at work after Boxing Day. Obviously, everyone was really worried, but it was just after Christmas. Anyone could be suffering from a major hangover, and it actually took a few days, until the 4th of January, until the police came and broke his door. So they got into his flat, and they found poor Alan Holmes on his bed. He had been tied up. He had been there for 10 days. They had literally left him there to die. He was still alive when they found him, but you can imagine after 10 days, no one could hear him scream because the building was going to be knocked down. He was the last tenant to be still inside. Obviously, they took him to hospital, but they were not able to save him. And what we now believe had happened is that burglars, they would have come inside his flat and threatened him and probably tortured him. So they wanted the pin of his NatWest bank card. They have been able to go and withdraw £1,000. £1,000, that's nothing, for somebody's life. But they were not able to identify them. So they still, the two guilty parties, they're still probably still alive today, actually. I think they'll be in their 60s now, but yeah. So probably the most So yeah, we've got those murders everywhere. I'll cross over here and you'll recognize it as soon as we go down. We'll be by the Regent Canal. So that's where I usually start this tour. So the Regent Canal, named after the Prince Regents, of course. That's the son. Oh, let's cross this way first. Why not? That was the son of George III. So George III, it is the king that is, of course, known for losing the American colonies. Oh, you're back. Sorry, I've lost you for a sec, I think, but it seems to be all good now. So yeah, the Prince Regent took over the power when his dad suffered from mental health issues. So that's the Regents with his favorite architect, John Nash. They rebuilt and redesigned a lot of London. So they did the Regent's Canal, they did Regent Street, they redesigned a lot of Buckingham Palace as well. So great architect, John Nash. And welcome everyone that just joined. I think I've seen a few names popping through. I think this is St. Mark's Church here. Quite a nice little church on graveyard as well. But we are heading towards the canal. So the Regent's Canal, if we're gonna take a left, but if I took a right, I could go all the way along the London Zoo, actually, all the way towards Little Venice. And I could, at Paddington, I could change to a different canal. And then, just gonna wait. Yeah, at Paddington, I could change to a different canal and then go towards the Midlands, really. You could go all the way to Liverpool and beyond. So we have an amazing network of canals all across England. Hi, Mary, welcome. Look how cute with the flowers in the tree. I don't think I've ever been inside this church. I don't know if it's opened much, but yeah. Right, let's go down. Ta-da! So you'd probably recognize the Function Princess. So this is an amazing Chinese restaurant that used to be a favorite of Paul McCartney, apparently. So we have a little junction here in the canals. So if you went down that way, you'll end up you'll end up at Little Venice. And this is the bench. So this is the bench where I usually start my tour. They've used it in the movie, in the Amy Winehouse movie that we just mentioned. They actually had a scene on this bench here. I was at the cinema and I was like, this is my bench. Although there are many benches in London that belong to me in my dreams. So that's the way towards Little Venice. And straight ahead, it's actually a discarded canal. You know, the canals were used as way to transport goods, like the train tracks. The train tracks, we have some discarded train tracks. So this is a discarded canal, and we'll go this way to go towards Camden Town. So you'll see, yeah, my bench is famous. Yes, exactly. And you might... Right, we should be back. Good. Good. I've just lost you, but that's when I was under the tunnel. So that's have had some ups and downs with the signal in this. It's the tunnel again, I hope. Oh, you just came back from the dentist. Cool. Just so you know, if we have any more ups and downs with the signal, I'll try to make sure I don't say anything too interesting. So don't worry. This way you shouldn't miss much information. This is not too surprising. It has happened before. Little drops in the signal here, but don't worry. As soon as we are in the market, it should be much better. So many Londoners, including myself, we often dream about stopping to pay rent, really, because London is very expensive. Actually, Camden, it is the borough in London where Londoners spend, on average, the highest proportion of their income into their rent. It is not the most expensive borough, but it is the borough in which we spend here on average about 2/3 of our incomes into our rent in the borough of Camden. Mary is asking, what's the canal called? The Regent's Canal, Mary. The Regent's. I think it was finished in 1820. So a lot of Londoners actually dream about moving into a boat, one of those narrow boats on the canals. It seems like a good solution, but it's actually not as cheap as you'd imagine. You could find a narrowboat for as little as £10,000. This is not really the boat, although you'd have to pay for some kind of a review first, so they can check that everything is fine, and that'll be another 700 on top of that. So the boat is not necessarily massively expensive, but you need to pay. Well, you need to pay for an insurance, you need to pay for the canal rescue services, but also you need to pay for the mooring. Most of those boats are actually on a cruising license. So that's not too expensive. It's just under maybe £1,000 a year, but they have to keep cruising. They cannot stay in one spot for more than 2 weeks. And some areas are actually even more restrictive, like Little Venice, it's only a week. And then you have to move on. And not only do you have to move on, but you have to do about 20 miles a year. We have a lot of canals surrounding London, but if you have to do all this distance, you often find yourself in a quite remote part of town. So that's why a lot of people... There's a swan here, look, they have a swan in their garden. I don't know if you can see. Well, it's a fake one, but I can see a part of a swan there. So yeah, that's a little bit expensive. And if you wanted a permanent mooring here, it would be about £1,000 a month. Let me show you the Camden waterfalls. Ta-da! That's a joke, of course. So yeah, if you were to pay for a permanent mooring, that's nearly the price of a rent. Although for £1,000 a month, you'd never have a full flat here. You could have a little bedroom in a flat share, but not a full flat, I'm afraid. So you'll see a lot of street art. It doesn't mean that it is allowed. The UK is actually one of the countries in Europe with the toughest penalties in terms of street art. It is rare, but you could end up in prison. Usually not for a single offense, but if you are a repetitive offender, and if the landlord wants to, because it depends on the owner of the walls. So if the landlord is happy to let it go and not say anything, you could be absolutely fine. But if the landlord decides to take you to court, it could go until prison for changing the color of a wall. And it is interesting to see what the council actually protects and what they destroy. I was here last week. There was a massive, a huge, I don't think it's the council, I think it's the Camden Market, but there was a new mural, a beautiful portrait of Amy Winehouse. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. It's gone. They've cleared it off. I mean, clearly the wall was probably illegal, but it was just beautiful. But I guess if they don't remove it, it looks like they are endorsing it. So then they might get more graffiti and more art. So they have to prove their point, so they've cleaned it off. Anyway, this castle here, it's not actually a castle. Well, it's a modern castle, but that's where they do a lot of water sport for the kids. So canoe and everything. Now let me show you those little steps here. This is actually for the horses that used to fall into the canal, because the canals they've been dug up, so they are man-made to transport the goods. And those little narrow boats, they were actually not. Was it done by Bambi? You know what, Tish? I don't know, because I was with customers, so I didn't take a photo of it. I didn't imagine it would be gone a week later, so I didn't actually have time to look at it properly and see the tag. Anyway, the horses, they would have been where I am now, and they'll be dragging down the boats. So those narrow boats didn't have a motor; it was the horses dragging them. But at the time, so the canals started to be dug in the 1760s, really. So the alternative to transport the goods, that was just to stick the goods on the back of a horse, really. So they were very convenient. The thing is, the horses, like humans, sometimes they used to fall down into the canal. Well, the canal, it's not very deep. It's about 4 feet. So even if I fell, I would be able to survive. I can actually stand up and I'll be okay, because even I am more than 4 feet. So those little steps here, that would be for me to come back up if I got drunk and fell into the canal, or for the horses to come back up as well. We do see quite a few people ended up in the canal, because Camden is a bit of a party place, really. Some people get a little bit intoxicated. Anyway, time to tell you about the graffiti wars. So if you see this little spot here across the canal with that wall that is heavily tagged, that piece of graffiti, so excuse my finger, but just here, that's actually quite a good place to paint, because to get there, you'd have to go on a boat or you'd have to get wet. So as an artist, if you paint that wall, you're more likely to stay a bit longer than anywhere else. The average lifespan of a piece of graffiti in London, it is actually 3 months. So it's not that long. And little disclaimer, it's not actually this bridge where it happened, it's 2 bridges down, but the signal is no good there. So I'm showing you this one instead, because it is the same setup. We had a piece of art that was under the bridge there, actually very close to the police station, that dated back to 1895. So we're talking 39 years old today. It was from an artist called Robo. In 2006, it looked like this. So it had been a little bit vandalized, really, but that's to be expected in so many years. But you could still see the original piece. When in 2009, Banksy came along, and Banksy painted this. Now, it's lovely, and I actually have to confess I like it, but there's an unspoken rule in street art. It is that you can cover any artist. It doesn't matter if it was painted 2 days ago. If you want to cover up anyone, you cover up anyone, but you cover them up fully. You do not use half of their piece into your piece. So Robo, he was a famous graffiti writer. That's how they call themselves, or even sometimes people even refer to it as Graffiti. He had stopped painting. He had had kids. He didn't want to get caught anymore. But he was, of course, annoyed. And he came back and he painted this. So now it looks like Banksy is giving some kind of an homage to Robo. So Banksy was having none of it. He came back with this. Not gonna read it out loud. Let me delete them to start again. So of course Robo was not very happy with that piece. Sorry, it's a bit harder to delete those close to the chat. And you go. Sorry. I'm just gonna remove the chat. It's gonna be easier. There we go. And so yeah, Robo was not happy, so he came back and deleted the FUC. And then, of course, Banksy came back. Banksy or the council, we don't know. Someone painted everything black. And then Robo came back and painted this, RIP Banksy's career. Then someone came back again with a black screen, probably the council again, we don't know. And then Banksy came up with this. That's very unusual, a bit mysterious, really, with his little goldfish in the middle. And he had the sofa is real, so he had incorporated the ugly sofa. So that was an interesting piece of art. And it's at that point, so we are now in 2011, but at that point, let me delete all the images. In 2011, it had been a few years already that the graffiti wars were on, and those were not only between Banksy and Robo. A lot of calligraphity artists or graffiti writers, they had started to repaint a lot of the murals. So we always had two schools, really, between the graffiti writers and the artists doing murals. So they were repainting one another. And little pause in the story. See, the building here is called the Henson. That's actually where Jim Henson was working on the Muppets. You know, the Muppet Show? That's where they were based. So yeah, anyway, at that point, that's when sadly Robo had an accident. And he was just starting a new show, a new gallery exhibition in Spitalfield. He fell off a ladder. Officially, he was not painting, but we don't know for sure. And that's when Banksy started to give homage to King Robo. So he painted this. So back to the flame coming out of a spray can. So that was now an homage to King Robo. And it was meant to stop the graffiti wars. It didn't really stop them. We still have, a bit of competition between the two styles. And if you look at this one here, this piece of street art, it's very interesting because it is actually not a Banksy. It is not, but at some point the council believed it was, so they installed some kind of plexiglass to protect it. And some of the graffiti writers, they had actually tagged it. They had placed a tag that said Wanksy. So you can see how the graffiti wars were not really over. You remember the Muppets? Good. Yeah, I think it's his son actually that was here when he took over. Jim had another studio elsewhere, but his son took over when they did the film and all that after the main show. By the way, this piece of street art, it is not Banksy, but when I first prepared this tour about 3 years ago, on Google Maps it said Banksy. So I was very confused. So I actually tried to contact the Banksy is anonymous, but he's got a company called Pest Control. When you wake up with a Banksy on your wall, you can contact Pest Control and they tell you if it's an actual Banksy. So I contacted them because I didn't want to say anything wrong in my tours. They never replied to me, but a few months later the Google listing saying Banksy had disappeared. So I think they acted anyway, they got it deleted. Anyway, let's go down towards the famous Camden Market. I said the Camden Market when really it was the Camden Markets. We used to have 5 here, but they've kind of merged together. And you can see, so the footpath on which I am, it's going up a bit, because underneath that's the entrance to the Camden catacombs. They're called catacombs. There are no dead bodies. It's just a pool of, like a pool of canals under the market, really. And Miss Piggy rules. And the Camden catacombs, they are closed to the public, but I think they do a couple of visits on canoes. I've never done it, but that's something I'd like to do one day. Some people also refer to them as the dead's dog hole, because sadly, when you have any type of animal, dead animals floating into the canal, apparently they often end up in the catacombs for some reasons, some kind of currents or God knows what. Kermit is your fav. Right, let's go up so you can see the little bridge, and then we'll go inside of the market. There's a lovely pub across, well, lovely. It's a Wetherspoons. So the British audience, you might know the Wetherspoons. It's a chain. They don't have the best reputation because of their big boss, Tim Martin. He's a millionaire, and he's a big Brexiteer. He did a massive campaign for Brexit, telling everyone that if we stayed in Europe, we'd have to pay our pint of beer 3 times the price. He was also particularly nasty with his staff at the beginning of the COVID crisis. He sacked them when he could have, he sacked them before to get the government help. But yeah, lovely pub anyway, so just there. And here, if you happen to have a lover, you can put your love in a lock, drop the key in the canal. So it's the same system everywhere. You know, you put your love in a lock, you drop the keys. This way you cannot find the keys, so you're meant to be together forever. But here it's actually a bit of a pun, because you can put a lock on the Camden lock. Although technically the Camden locks, they don't exist. That's the Hampstead locks. But everyone called them the... Oh, lost you for a sec again. Hopefully you'll be back. Yeah, back. Good. Sorry, I've lost you for a sec. So those are the locks here. Again, not actually called the Camden locks. So that's for the people on the boat. When the canal is not flat, of course, you can go up and down the canal by filling those up. And nowadays, people are very polite. If you happen to have 2 boats at the same time, they queue. Back in the day, you know, when the canals were a way to transport the goods, the community, they were fighting. Those guys were, you know, the time was money. So to be the first one in the lock, they'll actually fight. That's why some of them became boxers. So in terms of professional boxing, we had quite a few guys that used to work in the canals and in that communities of barges. Anyway, this is the street food part of the Camden Market. It is closed at this time. It's a bit better because it gets too busy at daytime. We wouldn't really have a signal. Just so you know, as soon as we are into the market, I might be talking on and off because they don't really like it not to speak. Because when you're live commenting, sorry, I've lost you for a sec again, but I think we are back. So yeah, I've noticed that the best way not to be kicked out is to actually not speak. So if I see any security or anyone looking at me, I'll stop talking. So this is the original part of the market. The other part used to be stables. So the stables, they were literally, there was a horse hospital. We're talking a lot of stables. In 1941, I think it's 8,000 horses being treated there through the year. And of course you have, it was always a very a busy hub in terms of industry and transport, because you have the trains, so you might see the train tracks up there on the canals, so you can it's very easy to bring in goods. And of course some of the horses used to get a bit tired, a bit injured, so they would come and be treated here at the horse hospital. Well, not anymore, of course. Today it's an amazing market with vintage stuff. Right, we should be back. Sorry, it looks like I've lost you for a sec again, but I think we are all back, so it's all good. It's probably because it's still busy. When it's busy, some people might be stealing my signal.
That's what they prioritize.
So everywhere here that you... I don't know if you can hear me. It looks like my signal is going up and down. This used to be the Vagina Museum here. Right, I'm just gonna wait, not saying anything interesting. And we should be back. Right, cool. So we've not missed anything. I've tried not to say anything interesting because I could see the signal was down. So behind me, that was the former Vagina Museum. Yes, you've heard this right, the Vagina Museum. They had to move, sadly, because they were not bringing enough money in. It's a bit expensive to have a spot here in Camden Market. So the Vagina Museum, they still exist, but they are now in Bethnal Green. It was a little museum about vaginas and periods, and what it was like to have your periods in Victorian times or in Roman times. Quite an interesting museum, but the best part was actually the gift shop. Because as much as we are used to see the little mouse mats or mugs or t-shirts or pencil with a vagina on top, were actually quite interesting. And this is the beautiful cyber dog. So this is a former gin warehouse. The industry here in Camden was mainly piano manufacturers, gin producers, soft drink as well, like tonic water, and wine merchant as well. And it's called Cyber Dog because of the owners. They had a little chihuahua that looked like he was from outer space, so that's why it's Cyber Dog. And today it is a shop that feels like a nightclub. It's actually a shop for party animals, you know, party goers, with a lot of fluorescent and interesting party items. Anyway, let's go and take a look at Amy Winehouse. So she's got a statue here that was unveiled in 2014, and she is life size. So she was quite petite and very skinny as well, but bless her, she suffered from eating disorders, of course. So she's been placed here. Apparently, as a teenager, she had a job for a little while at the Camden Market. Tampon teapots. Yes, that's quite spot on. That's exactly the type of item they would have, Rose. Let's flip the camera around so you can see the. She's wearing heels, so she's a bit taller than me, but she was actually the same height as me, 5'2", and she's icon here in Camden. She lived here in 2 different locations, and well, she actually died here in Camden Square of an alcohol overdose. She the sign Camden Square, apparently after her passing, it kept being stolen. You know, the sign from the council, you know, the big Camden Square sign. And apparently the council was really annoyed because they kept having to pay for a new sign. But people would steal it as a little memento, really. And let's go out of the market to go into Camden High Street. It is a little bit quieter at this time, but if you come here in the afternoon, it is very, very busy with tourists from all over the globe, really. Mainly Europe. In the Cyberdog, when you go into the basement, it's actually a gift shop, a special gift. It's a sex shop, really. You wouldn't notice it straight away, so that's why I love. Let me go. Thank you. That's why I love going into the basement of Cyberdog, because it's a very good place if you want to learn how to say "let's get out of here" in several European languages. Because the families, you don't really get a warning that you are in the sex shop suddenly. So you'll see a lot of families, like the kids would be like, "Oh, guarda, mamma, mira, mamma, regarde." And then the mummy would look at the item before to realize that she's looking at a pair of butt plugs, and then she'd go, andiamo, vamos, on s'en va. So you can learn how to say it in many languages. Anyway, we have a bit more street art over here. Let me show you. We have, we've always had quite a few representations of Amy Winehouse around here. But this one is from an artist called Otto Shades. He does a lot of stencils. So this one is quite nice. So stencils, in terms of risk, it is actually a little bit less risky than if you do freehand. Because if you do stencil, well, you technically prepare it at home, then you just spray in a few minutes. Whether if you do freehand, it could take hours, you know. So you get many more chances to get caught. And if you do paste up or anything you prepare at home and you stick on the walls, it's the same, you know, really, in terms of the risk taking, it's minor, really. But when you do freehand, you know, you come in the middle of the night with your hoodie and your cans, or sometimes in the middle of the day, you come with a yellow high visibility jacket and like a helmet, looking very official, you know, like a council worker, and nobody notices anything, or they think you are legit. I was talking about the big portrait of Amy disappearing. It was on this wall like 10 days ago. All gone. They've just come in with a car chair and removed it. Anyway, let me show you a spot where she spent quite a lot of time. This was really her favorite pub in Camden, the Oily Arms. She spent a lot of time in there. Well, as you might know, she drank a lot. She never really walked behind the bar, but she used to love going behind the bar to serve people their pints. she was such a good friend with the manager. Apparently, when she died, not when she died, when one day she couldn't go to collect her. I think it was the Vodafone Live Award. She couldn't go and collect it, so the pub landlord actually went to collect it for her, and it's still in the pub. They took it as a little souvenir. So another beautiful mural here. This one is commissioned. So the wall belongs to the pub. So the artist had all the time he wanted to do whatever he had to do. And you can see the tattoo on her chest. It says Blake. This is Blake Fielder Civil. So that was her husband. Great love story, those two, but really they destroyed each other. He's the one that really got her into heavy drugs, and they even used to do self-harm together. It's already hard. It's already very, very difficult to do that to yourself, but they actually did that together. So yeah, on that point, I think the movie was a little bit too easy, I think, on Blake, because really, of course, she had suffered from depression before to meet him. She had some issues when she was a teenager already, but I think in the movie he looks a bit like a charming prince, a charming prince that happens to do drugs, when really I think his mental health was also terrible, and the two of them together was, they were destroying each other slowly, and yeah. He ended up in prison. I think he was violent with a pub manager, but she waited for him. Let me show you. You've got some lovely portraits here as well. Just gonna pop the font between the railings. So little pop art of. And she was writing her own lyrics, so you might see, we only say goodbye with words. I died 1,000 times. When you go back to her, and I go back to black. She always wrote, so she wrote everything herself, and it was always very personal. So when she says, you go back to her and I go back to black, because when they first met, he had a girlfriend. And at some point he did go back to her, and then she went back, she went into drinking very heavily and drugs. So yeah, it was always, even when she talks about rehab, of course her management wanted to send her to rehab, and she said no. So that's all very much real. See those? Let me zoom in. You might see those little egg cup on top of the building. This is because that's a former TV studios. They used to do TV AM here. So those are the egg cups from the TV AM show. They used to be blue and yellow at those times, but not anymore. Oh yeah, she was definitely very, very talented, with a voice that's almost like a black gospel voice. So very. This lady was excited to be on camera. So yeah, very, amazing artist, definitely. Let me show you a bit more street art. There's a little bit of 3D piece here. It's nice. I don't know who the artist is. Let's see. Ronzo. See, they've got their own website and stuff. So although it is technically illegal, it's some of them are their Instagram and their website everywhere. Oh, let me show you something here. Every time I come here, I always forget to show you. This here, it's so this is it's wood. So you can see the thing is wood, when the rest of the pavement, it's of course pavement. Back in the day, we had that everywhere. With the horse pee and and people's pee and all that. They actually, the wood was not always smelling very good, so that's why we swapped it to pavement. But at some point, we did have wood on the pavement everywhere. Anyway, we are now on the beautiful Camden High Street, and you can see a lot of the businesses here. They have an illustration of what they do. So this is a piercing artist, so that's why they have a mouse with a lot of piercings. This is a Chinese restaurant. Tattoo, piercing and body art in general, it is now a big part of the Camden industry, really. So that's another tattoo artist straight ahead. You can see they have a set of cards, like if getting a tattoo was a bit of a gamble. Well, I suppose it is a bit of a gamble, really. You never know what you're gonna get. Those big signs, they've started to pop up in the 90s, really, when Camden stopped being the home of punk and became very touristic. We have another portrait of Amy here. And we've got those foot cross that have a rainbow. I'm afraid this is not for the LGBTQ plus community. It's actually for the NHS. What happened is through the COVID lockdowns, a lot of the kids started to paint rainbows to put them out through their windows to say thank you to the NHS staff. So NHS, by the way, it is the National Health System. So doctors and nurses. So nowadays the rainbow has become a symbol of the thank you to the NHS as well. So we have to share the rainbow. Anyway, straight ahead, this is actually hand-painted advertising. So this is for Dr. Martens. The Dr. Martens shoes, they actually started here in Camden. Some people hate it because, of course, it is advertising. But if we're going to have advertising anyway, we might as well have it hand-painted rather than a big poster. And if you see the building with the vegetation, that is the MTV TV studios, still today. Right, let's go down. Camden has changed, and it keeps changing even from my days. I mean, I've been in London 16 years, and I can tell you that 16 years ago, Camden was very different. You wouldn't see Ray-Bans or Starbucks or all those big chains. There were many more little independent shops, and all those little shops. I don't think it's still the case today, but I could be wrong. I'm getting old. I don't do those stuff anymore. But back in the day, you know, from the outside, they sell a lot of souvenirs and a lot of magnets or whatever it might be. Well, 15 years ago, you could just go straight to the back and ask for legal highs, for example. The legal highs, for the ones that don't know, they are those new molecules. So they are not illegal yet. You know, with the drugs, new molecules come into the market every year. So the governments, they don't have time to make them illegal, and they can already do a lot of damage before to be illegal. Well, Camden was really the place where you could buy a lot of those. And sadly, you know, with the old drugs, at least we know the effect on our metabolism and our bodies. Some of those new drugs were actually very bad. And when you wanted those little plastic bags, you know, for the drug dealers, or if you wanted a scale for the scientists or the drug dealers, that's also where you'll buy it. Nowadays, you can get all of that on the internet, on the black market and stuff, or even on the normal internet, but not at the time. And this market, this bit of the market really makes me a bit nostalgic, because nowadays it's one of those shipping container parks with quite fancy coffee houses and shops, and sadly the little traders that used to be here at the market before, they were not able to afford those containers, so the market has changed quite dramatically. So that was the second market, but the first one still exists today. It is here, the Inverness Street Market, and this market is more street food and foods in general. And this street is very much a party street. When some of you might know, about maybe 12 years ago now, I used to work as a zombie actor for a scare attraction. I was dressed up as a Victorian sex worker, a victim of Jack the Ripper. Well, that was a terrible job in terms of money, so I had to take some second jobs, and I had a job as a club promoter right here on this street. On weekends, I was paid literally £1 per person every time I took someone. I think it was that door. It was called Bar Solo. Very difficult job, commission only. So if I didn't bring anyone into the club, I was not getting paid. And at the time, on a Friday or Saturday night, straight ahead on the opposite side of the street there, you'd have a police officer on, those high chairs like you have in Malibu for the lifeguards. So you can see like 200 yards down the street if they start a fight or anything. And straight ahead here, you'll have a little van with some volunteers inside to avoid calling an ambulance every time you see anyone a bit too intoxicated with alcohol or drugs. Every time you call an ambulance, it costs about £250 to the NHS. We don't pay for it individually in this country, but as a taxpayer, we pay for it. So that was to avoid calling too many ambulances. When you found someone way too intoxicated on the pavement, you'd bring them in the little van, so you'd have those volunteers that were like nurses taking care of them and only calling an ambulance when they really needed to. Now, back to Amy Winehouse. This pub, the Good Mixer, this is the very place where she met Jack Fielder Civil, so her husband. Apparently that very day, she had a bad day at her recording studio, and she was in there having a drink when... have I lived in France? Yes, I have. Not since I'm an adult. I moved here at the age of 21, but I have, yeah. So yeah, Amy was she was in there, and Blake he came for a drink because he had a bit of a win at the betting shop, and he bought her a few drinks all afternoon. It's probably the last drink he ever bought her because, of course, she was a bit of his bank as well, especially when after the success of Back to Black, she clearly had much more money than him for drugs or everything they did. But yeah, that's where they met. Although, we never really know what happens in a relationship, They clearly loved each other very much, those two, and it's probably not fair to put all the blame on Blake anyway. But yeah, she seemed to be the type of girl that did exactly what she wanted to do, She was a bit... she could be a bit violent as well when she was drunk. I remember in the news once she had headbanged a photographer. But in her defense, the press was horrible to her. It's only been 12 years, but let's say that you can see really from the attitude of the journalist that we've evolved a lot in the way we treat mental health and eating disorders and addictions. We've really changed our ways a lot, and that's a very good thing. Our mother-in-law, she created an association, the Amy Winehouse Foundation, to help young people with ED or strong mental health issues. Anyway, down the street here, we are now on Gloucester Crescent. Number 70, that's where Charles Dickens' wife used to live when he split with her to go with I think she was a young actress, but she was living as a recluse a bit up there. But this is not what I wanted to show you. We are here because I wanted to show you that very building here. this home here, number 23, Gloucester Crescent, it is here that the playwright Alan Bennett used to live. Now, did you guys see the movie? Let me show you. Did you see The Lady in the Van? That's with Maggie Smith. So that was maybe 10 years ago, not even 2015 or 2016 maybe. Let me know in the chat if you've seen it. So the Lady in the Van, it is actually a true story. Alan Bennett used to live here, and this weird lady, homeless lady living in her van, started to park her yellow van on the street here. Now it's quite a posh crescent, really. So they, yeah, you saw it, Linda. Yeah, cool movie. So that lady started to park herself here, and according to Alan Bennett, she was getting a lot of crap from people. You know, people used to wake her up and shake the van. And to be honest, she was not a very nice lady. She was never smiling. She was not very sociable, let's say. She was, as he said, Alan said, she was difficult to like. But because she was getting so much trouble on the streets, and also because she didn't have an address, she couldn't really get any of the social helps that you have with with an address. He offered her to park herself in his driveway. He believed it was going to be just a few months. By the way, little stop in the story. The red brick building just there, that's one of the first homeless shelters, really, in Victorian times. Huge home for the homeless. Anyway, so the lady actually stayed in his driveway for 15 years. So he never obviously expected that. Eventually he started to run down electricity to her so she could watch TV and stuff. After she passed, he actually wrote a play about her. So she was known as Mrs. Shepherd. And eventually they did the movie. So Maggie Smith played Miss Shepherd. There's one there apparently. So the home, it still belongs to Alan Bennett today. He doesn't live inside. There's a photographer living inside, but they used his own home for the movie. And the van, they used to leave it overnight and over the weekend. And as we mentioned earlier, Camden is a bit of a party place. Apparently they came on a Monday morning. Maggie Smith was booked all day, and they realized that the van had been broken into. There was a young couple inside. They had used the van to, well, let's say to do what they had to do, whatever that was. And they didn't want to tell Maggie Smith, so apparently they changed all the running order of the scenes, and they had it sanitized. And they only told her after the day, because they didn't want her to be put off. Apparently it was quite difficult for her, because obviously she's not young. I think she's 89 now, Maggie Smith. She would have been a bit younger at the time of the movie, but apparently it was very difficult to keep going in and out of that little van, because she's not that flexible anymore. But yeah, and yeah, quite a fun movie. It's all true. So it was actually the lady. She's actually, I think she's Mary Fairchild. I think that's her name. She had. She was living as a homeless recluse because she had hit a motorcyclist with her van, and she believed to be responsible. The young man died, so she ran away basically. Instead of stopping and dealing with the consequences, she had run away. So that's why she was living under a fake identity, really. Anyway, we've got those music legends on the pavement here, and this is Camden Town Station. It's a Leslie Green station. It's quite typical, the architecture of Leslie Green. That's the station was actually built on the site of a former workhouse. Another one here. We have quite a few iconic music venues here in Camden. To my right, we're not gonna go, we'll go the other side, but you have the famous Jazz Cafe. Behind me is the Electric Ballrooms. And there she is, Amy Winehouse. So she's got her plaque as well. Now, there's another very interesting lady that used to live here. Her name was Ginny Bigham. She was known as Mother Damnable. Back in the day, Camden really used to be a junction on the way down to London. The village was Kentish Town. Here in Camden, you didn't have much. You had a couple of alehouses, really. One of them, we're not gonna go because there's nothing to see, but straight here, there was the Black Cap, a pub that has closed today where, the infamous Dennis Nilsson used to target some of his victims. We'll talk about Dennis on Sunday, so stay tuned. And the second pub was the Mother Red Cap, so that was named after Mother Damnable. So she was a lady that would have lived here under the reign of James I. And we don't have much records, but well, actually for a lady of her days we do. She was known as a witch, really. Four of her husbands, they were not necessarily husbands. You know, sometimes working class people at the time, they didn't actually get married on paper. They just lived as married. It was said that four of them disappeared in very mysterious circumstances. Now, it was not actually that mysterious. The first one, Gypsy George, you know, when there's a character called Gypsy George, it's gonna be a great story. Gypsy George was actually hanged because he had stolen some ships in Highbury. Not really the type of place where you'd raise a ship today, but yeah. And so the first one was hanged, nothing to do with her. The second one, he actually disappeared, he was gone, no one ever saw him again. But to be fair, in the 17th century, disappearing was not very difficult, really. The third one, that was a guy called Pitcher. That's the interesting one. I'm gonna see if the security lets me film the plaque here, because that's where she lived. Hello, just showing the plaque, if that's okay. So that's for Mother Redcap here. So that's where she used to have a home. So they have a couple of plaques here telling you the full story. The pub used to be called the Mother Redcap until the 90s, really. Now it is the World's End, an amazing...
That one, that's a different one.
I thought they were the same. Oh, okay. I thought the two plaques were the same. Apparently not. This one is better, he says. Thank you. So the guy called Pitcher, there actually are two versions of the story. I have to say, thank you, have a good evening. I have to say I prefer the first one. The first one is that part of his body, you can guess which part, the private parts, were actually found into an oven. I like this version of the story because technically he could still be alive. I'm afraid the true version, it's actually his full body was found in an oven. Now you'd have to imagine the 17th century oven, so we're talking huge, you know, like you have in Hampton Court Palace, you know, you can easily fit a human in there. So she was actually tried for that. We have some evidence, so we know the trial happened. Would you believe, someone put a little face, on a little penis on the red light. It's hard to see with it's too bright, but anyway. So she was tried and acquitted. somehow the local community actually supported her. Everyone came to court and they were like, no, but she used to be a bit violent and he used to hide in the oven all the time, like if it was completely normal. And because so many people claimed that he used to hide in the oven, well, she was acquitted. But then people were a bit suspicious with her. And her fourth husband, according to the gossip, was a wealthy man. He died. That's it. We do not have any more information about him. What we think we know is that she probably worked as a healer and maybe an innkeeper as well. The innkeepers, they had the reputation of being witches anyway. Now, in the at the time, it was still illegal to be a witch. We are at the time of James I and all those witchcraft hunts and everything. But the healers, they were very much part of the community. That'll be interesting if a little bit more research was done on the subject. But they potentially were gathering some plants and making some potions, potentially even trying to do some contraceptives. So they were very much valued in society. So the border between being a witch and a healer was actually quite a fine line. We don't know what happened for people to suddenly flip against her and call her a witch. She probably just grew a bit old. She probably just grew a bit ugly. It's always been, ugly women are always accused of everything. She potentially maybe just developed dementia or something that scared people. We don't know. But suddenly she had the reputation of being a witch. And one day, according to what they claimed, the devil entered her home. Many people saw the devil. That part of the story might have actually been embellished by the pub later on. But they claim that they saw the devil enter her home, then they didn't see her for a few days, and eventually they entered the little cottage. She was dead in front of the fire, very, very stiff. Fire, they gave it to the cat, and the cat died. Again, probably massively exaggerated. They said that her body, hey, we were just talking about a cat, and there you are. Do you know Mother Damnable? Did you know she might have killed a cat with her potion? No. Well, good, because it's a scary story. So they suddenly accused her of being a witch, and because the story was so famous, everyone wanted to come down to the cottage. So because a lot of people came down, they started to sell refreshments, and that's how the pub started. So the pub, the Mother Redcap, probably embellished the story and make it even crazier to attract more people. They've now changed their names. It's still, let me show you, I think I have a photo of the inside of the pub. It's quite, it's huge inside, it's beautiful. So that's what it looks like. A famous venue. And that's where I'm gonna go to urinate after the tour. Anyway, so that was the story of Mother Redcap. Mother Redcap is a name that is still today very much associated with witches. We do have a few pubs called the Mother Redcap. We have another one on the Highbury Road, the road going towards Archway. So it's... To be fair, the innkeepers, they've often been accused of being witches. I'm hoping to take you to Croydon next week, and we can talk about another one that was vilified as well. Anyway, at number 7 here, it is still the original building. In 1885, there was a horrible murder. So this used to be a lodging house, so pretty much like today. It's probably a flat share today. And those lodging houses, you would live with a stranger, Probably still today, it's actually flat sharing is actually quite dangerous. You don't know who you live with. And the room here downstairs that is meant to be the parlor, it's meant to be the living room, it was rented. Still today they often do that to rent it a little bit more, a little bit pricier. It was rented to a gentleman that was a good man, nothing out of the ordinary really. He had a large room and he had some birds, and there was another guy that lived upstairs. The other guy was a little odd really. The landlady just found him a bit odd. Nothing dangerous, but just odd. He said that he was a sailor, but he had published a book. The landlady was already under the impression that the book never existed. His name was John Rose. And one day, out of the blue, he came down to Charles Wheaton. He was the guy living downstairs. He entered his bedroom. He shot him 3 times. One in the chest, one in the head, and another time somewhere. We don't know why. Charles is still alive at this point, and he actually ran out in the street. In the, how did they phrase it? In the state of the naked. Oh no, in the state of the nude. But with those Victorians, I don't know if that means fully naked or if he could have been in his underwear. But he's in the state of nude, running down here, and he actually ran into hospital. He ran all the way down there himself. Sadly, they couldn't save him. He died in hospital. There was an inquest, and there was a trial. And apparently the guy, John Rose, that had some very strong mental health issues, he claimed that he had been invited downstairs to look at the birds, and suddenly out of nowhere, Thomas got out a gun, and then he acted in self-defense. There's no evidence of that. The poor gentleman downstairs did not own a gun. They didn't find a gun anywhere in the bedroom, so that was all rubbish. So John Rose was guilty, but he actually, they couldn't judge him because they found his mental health was too bad. So they actually sent him to Broadmoor. Broadmoor was still today, it is some kind of a prison and asylum in the same time. It is a prison for people that have very, very strong mental health issues, so they cannot be held responsible for their actions, really, because of their states of minds. Anyway, that's gonna be the end of the tour. Let me flip around and let me know in the chat if you have any questions. Oh, and also let me do that. I always forget to do that. If any of you wanted to buy me a coffee, because all of you that are live with me now, you have, I'm trying to frame my face in the same time, but it's difficult. You have the little, you have the links in the chat, but if you're watching on a replay, you probably don't have the links, so you can I don't know why I cannot manage. You can actually scan that and buy me a coffee. Anyway, let's remove it so you can see my face. And let me know in the chat if you have any questions for me before we go. If not, thank you very much for coming today. If you want to see a bit more of me, Sunday night we're heading to. Oh, I'm not telling you. We're heading to a car park. So you might know in my Monopoly tours there's the free parking. So we ended up on free parking. So we have to find a free car park in London, or a car park, because there are hardly any places to park for free in the capital. So we'll have a little look in the area, and we'll talk about a few murders as well. Cool. Thank you very much for coming today. Thanks, Dawn. Thanks, Rose. Thanks, Tish. Thanks, Sarah, and everybody else. If any of you dropped me a little tip on PayPal or buy me a coffee, that's very, very much appreciated. It is thanks to your generosity that I can spend more time on energy and and time in research. So thank you very much. Let me see if I've missed anything. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Tish. Thank you, Lisa. You're not sure if you'll be awake. Well, if you have to watch the replay, that's fine. At the moment, I'm leaving all my tours to be available on replay. A haunted car park. Ooh, I don't know whether there are any ghosts in the car park, but there are certainly a few murders that are quite local. So we'll talk about those for sure. Oh, thank you, Rosemary. Yeah, it was my birthday on Saturday. If you win the lottery this week, where can you buy a property? Well, it depends how much you win, Cheryl. If you are in the millions, you could buy here in Primrose Hill. It's a lovely place to buy. But if you don't win that many millions, then you might stay a bit further out. Cool. Anyway, thank you very much for coming today. It's always great to have you along. Hopefully, I'll see some of you on Sunday. If not, I'm just going to go and double check the signal tomorrow, actually, in Croydon to see if it is doable. The distances might be a little bit longer than here, so I might actually do a few clips, and I might have to show you a few clips as we walk. But yeah, that'll be exciting to go a little bit more on the outskirts of London, really. Thank you, Mary. Cool. See you later, guys. Have a good evening or a good morning, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks for all the birthday wishes. Thank you, Abby.